Imagine losing control of your body because something inside you has taken over your mind. These real-life parasites turn innocent creatures into zombies, and you won't believe they actually exist. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video. Can we hit 1 million subscribers this year? With your support, let's make it happen.
The eye worm. Oh, great. This is just what we needed. Or perhaps not. If you happen to be all about to eat your tea or scoff down a sandwich or something, although why would you be doing that during this video? That's well beyond me. Then you probably want to wait just a little bit longer, because this next one is most likely going to make you barf. Eye worms, yes, they are exactly what they sound like, are worms that are found in your eyes. I don't think I can even go through with this one. Can you? Are you even still watching? Eye worms are a kind of parasite, meaning that they live off of another organism or its host. There are several types of parasitic worms that can be lodged in the eyeball. Some enter your body via undercooked meat or fish. They usually take up residence in your intestines, but they can also travel to other parts of your body, and that includes your eyeballs. And if they do so, then that becomes very serious and can actually cause you to lose your sight. Other kind of worms can enter the body through a bite from an infected fly. It can then move to different parts of the body and also produce larvae in the infected person. And yes, these can also get all the way to your eyeballs as well. There are actually a whole heap of different disgusting worms that can end up in your eyes. Some are found in dogs and cat poop, others in infected meat, but most of them can cause real harm if they make it up to your eyeballs. I think we all get the idea. Shall we move on swiftly then? Diffalobothrium. This particular species of disgusting tapeworm is infamous for its massive size, apparently reaching lengths of 2 to 15 meters. It lives by embedding itself in the intestines of its host, where it absorbs the nutrients that are taken in by the usually human being, often at the expense of that human's health. Its life cycle has many different stages and hosts. It is totally disgusting, but you should know that when the human host poops, the eggs of the tapeworm are then released and they hatch in fresh water. These then go on to infect tiny crustaceans, and after that, they'll then migrate into fish like salmon, perch, or pike. Humans are usually infected by consuming raw and undercooked fish that contains the parasite's larval form. Disgusting. This parasite is found worldwide, and there are higher incidences in regions where raw or lightly cooked freshwater fish is a dietary staple, like in Scandinavia, Russia, and North America. Ugh. Zombie ant fungus. In the Amazon rainforest, there are many weird and wonderful things. There are also some truly creepy and gross things that we probably wish we didn't know about. But today, we're really leaning into the more disgusting side of life, so here you are. This is a type of fungus that makes insects into zombies. What that basically means is that this parasitic fungus attaches to the insect host by infecting the foraging creature through spores, and then it works to penetrate the insect's exoskeleton until it slowly controls its entire body. It sounds extremely sinister and like the beginning of a horror movie. In the end, though, the fungus grows and it compels the insect to move away from its own environment and into a more humid climate in order to favor the growth of the fungus. At this point, the insect is helpless to resist and will eventually wind up on a leaf. Interestingly, about 10 inches off the ground and with a northern-facing vantage point. Then the insect will be trapped until it dies, and it will die slowly as the fungus feeds on the insect's insides. After the insect dies, the fungus finally sends out a new fruiting body out of the base of the shriveled, dead insect's head, and that will send out new spores to infect new victims and start the cycle all over again. It's absolutely brutal. Leucochloridium paradoxum. It's at this point that I should really admit that I'm going to mispronounce a lot of things on this list because they have a lot of large and long and really weird scientific names. So don't hate me in the comments for it. This flatworm hijacks the body and behavior of amber snails. The parasite begins with bird droppings, where its eggs are deposited, and then those snails eat the droppings and unwittingly become host to the deadly parasite. Once inside, the parasite develops into pulsating, colorful sacs that infiltrate the snail's eye stalks and then turn them into bright and worm-like appendages. Yay! These sacs pulsate rhythmically, mimicking the wriggling of caterpillars, which is apparently an irresistible thing for birds, which are then on track to become the parasite's next hosts. When a bird then eats the snail's eye stalks, the parasite grows in the bird's digestive system, reproduces, and then releases its eggs through the bird's droppings, perpetuating the cycle over and over again. Now, incredibly, the infected snail will often survive the ordeal, although it's now blinded and vulnerable, but apparently still available for potential reinfection. It's truly harrowing stuff. Lungworm. Lungworms are totally disgusting, horror movie-style parasitic nematodes that target the respiratory systems of all sorts of animals, including livestock, domestic pets, and wildlife. There are different ones for different sorts of creatures. Though their specific hosts and life cycles do differ, they all share one goal, that is to invade the lungs and disrupt normal respiratory function. It's horrible. Lungworms can have either a direct or indirect kind of life cycle. In the direct type of cycle, the larvae are shed in the poop of an infected host and are then consumed by a new one through contaminated food or water. Ew! Then, and this is the actual worst, these larvae move to the lungs of the host where they then mature and reproduce in the lungs. In the indirect type of life cycle, there are also intermediate hosts like snails and slugs that will carry the larva, and these will then infect the final host when the intermediate one is consumed. And so, if a dog eats a slug or comes into contact with its trails, then it can contract lungworm. Once they've found their way inside, the lungworms will then establish themselves in the bronchi and lungs, and this causes symptoms like persistent coughing, difficulty breathing, and in some severe cases, secondary infections or lung damage. The infected host will often expel larvae through their snot or their poop, and then the cycle goes on and on and on. To diagnose this disgusting disease, vets have to examine poop, take tests of lung gunk, our respiratory secretions, and x-rays, and it can be treated with medication, which is a relief. There are also various preventative measures that can be taken in the form of checkups and treatments for pets and livestock, but even so, this is a super gross and really very unpleasant parasite. But then again, they all are, aren't they? Well, we finally made it to the end, and I hope that nobody lost their lunch. I did a little bit in my mouth. But anyways, which of these absolutely disgusting and totally terrifying nightmare parasites is going to be haunting your dreams tonight? African trypanosomiasis. African trypanosomiasis is commonly known as sleeping sickness. It's a parasitic disease which really is as alarming as its moniker would suggest. The sickness is transmitted by the bite of the tsetse fly. Well, this little fly is the stuff of horrific nightmares. If you could conceive of a really nasty and dangerous creature, you may be unlikely to come up with something so innocuous as this little fly. However, the tsetse fly not only has a horrible bite, but it could actually murder you. The tsetse fly's mouth is full of serrated parts that literally saw into the skin to suck out your blood. One bite from these little things hurts a whole heck of a lot, but it doesn't end there. These hideous bugs also transmit diseases, and not just the common cold either. These blighters are gobbing a deadly disease known as sleeping sickness into the veins of their victims. It's passed on by a parasite that some flies can transmit in their gross mouth juice when they bite someone. If left untreated, the victim falls into a deep and ultimately fatal sleep, but sometimes the parasite's able to lay dormant in the human body for years before suddenly taking a hold and plunging the infected person into darkness and possibly endless slumber. So, despite its diminutive size, the fly is as powerful as an evil fairy tale witch, but only the tsetse fly does not care who it curses. Trematoda. These things are most generally known as flukes. They are a parasitic flatworm that love to hang out in a bunch of different hosts, including humans, livestock, and wildlife. Trematodes are super well adapted to their parasitic lifestyles. Their bodies are mainly oval and flat, and they come fully equipped with suckers which allow them to attach to their host's tissues. They don't have respiratory systems, but rather they have a tough outer layer for protection and nutrient absorption. Waste is excreted through their mouths because they don't have bum holes. Many species of fluke begin as eggs in water, and they will then hatch into larvae and infect a snail host. From there, they might pass into another intermediate host like a fish or a crustacean before reaching their definitive host, which is often a human or another sort of mammal. These are no benign entities though. The World Health Organization estimates that food-borne flukes alone can cause 200,000 illnesses and over 7,000 deaths each and every year. Kangaroo. Now, no doubt you'll have heard of this one, even if you didn't know what it was called. A tiny catfish that lives in the Amazon River, the toothpick fish or kangaroo, is most famous for being attracted to swimming into and setting up camp in a human being's urethra. There are always references to this little fish in movies about the Amazon, and we've heard all of them before. Interestingly enough though, there are not actually that many genuine accounts of the pee-loving kangaroo actually embedding itself in any unfortunate appendage, but the mythology follows it around nonetheless. These teeny-weeny fishes are actually amongst the few identified parasitic fish on the planet, and when they're not found dashing up a stream of urine, these fish usually prefer to make their home in the snugly warm gills of other fish, where they then pitch up a camp by poking out a load of spines that hold them into place. This is the process that makes them particularly painful if they end up in a person's more sensitive areas. But that host fish has a nasty experience in store. The little toothpick is about to nibble a hole and literally suck the blood out of its victim. Now, the word toothpick does make them sound skinny, but I guess it means really sharp and pointy as well. Personal note, if you do ever find yourself in the tricky situation with a kangaroo swimming up your willy, pulling it out can result in those barbs ripping through your urethra and your junk. And if it all gets all the way in, well, it's going to suck your blood. And just so you know, maybe just stay out of the Amazon altogether. The Saculina carcini. The Saculina carcini is a species of barnacle and a parasitic oddity. This thing has a rather dramatic life cycle. It's going to hijack its host, the green crab, and then turn it into a vessel for its own reproduction, all the while altering the crab's behavior, physiology, and even its gender traits. It sounds insane, doesn't it? This scary parasitic journey begins when a female larva first settles on a crab's exoskeleton, and then it'll transform itself into a specialized form called a kentrogon. It will then inject its internal cells into the crab's body, where they grow into an intricate network of root-like structures. And over time, this system siphons nutrients and spreads all throughout the crab's body, and then super creepily, a visible reproductive sac emerges from the crab's underneath. That sac does not belong to the crab. This external sac produces and nurtures thousands of eggs every single day, and these are fertilized by teeny tiny males of the same species who live exclusively inside of that sac. The crab host is then manipulated to care for the parasite's offspring as if it were their own. It's just really messed up, isn't it? One of this barnacle's most shocking things is the way it can literally rewire the host's hormonal and neural systems. Male crabs that are infected by the parasite develop female-like characteristics like a more broad abdomen, which then allows them to carry the parasite's reproductive sacs. This feminization and suppression of the crab's reproductive capabilities, which is a process called parasitic castration, is used to prevent that crab from breeding and molting, which basically stops it from growing or even developing at all. Spirometra aeroncepha something or other. Next up, we have another disgusting parasitic tapeworm with a life cycle that spans multiple hosts and the potential to cause severe health issues in humans. That's just great. This particular tapeworm is mainly into infecting cats and dogs. Humans are mostly just accidental hosts, harboring the larval stage instead of the adult worm. The way that people catch this one usually involves consuming undercooked or raw meat from a host, like frogs or snakes, or even drinking contaminated water. Once inside, the human body body, the larvae do not mature into adults, but migrate to tissues and organs. Then, this means that the symptoms depend on where the larvae end up in the body, because they can cause subcutaneous swelling, blindness, paralysis, or even neurological symptoms if they happen to reach the brain or the spinal cord. Wow! The tongue-eating louse. Ugh, now we at the Fancy Banana certainly do look at some of the most gross things that nature has to offer, but this particular thing is possibly one of the most utterly revolting creatures we have ever had the misfortune to happen across. Your poor eyeballs may not appreciate this one, so I do apologize in advance that you may never unsee it. This creepy little isopod is a parasitic crustacean that's actually a marine louse. That basically means that it will find itself a host buddy and then attach itself to it. But in the case of these particular parasites, the thing they especially love to do is find themselves a fish to live on. Well, inside of, actually. These parasitic creatures prefer to live inside of snapper, but have been found on 7 different species of fish. They don't just suck out the blood, though. Like any self-respecting parasite, oh no, these things do something rather different. They eat the tongue of their host species and then replace that tongue with themselves. It's shocking, and actually the only kind of creature that's known to do such a thing. It is the stuff of nightmares or super nasty horror movies, but this, my friends, is nature, and it is really rather horrible anyways. Glyptopanteles. This next scary monster is actually extremely tiny, and it's a wasp that targets caterpillars of various moth species as their hosts. That is what they do. Adult female wasps will lay their eggs inside of a caterpillar using a specialized ovipositor, that is basically a fancy name for something that lays eggs. Then as they begin to hatch, they will feed on the caterpillar's internal tissues, but in a way that avoids vital organs to keep their host alive. Once the larvae are ready to pupate, they then burst out of the caterpillar's body. Although the process that might seem lethal, the host caterpillar doesn't die immediately. Instead, it's reprogrammed to serve as a bodyguard for the emerging wasp pupa. The caterpillar aggressively defends it, warding off predators by lashing out with its body, or even pushing potential attackers away. It is insane, but that is because the parasite has total control over the caterpillar, or what's left of it at least, and it can use it to do its bidding until it literally dies in the process. Now, in some cases, researchers have found that a few larvae remain inside of the caterpillar after the others have left, and these seem to be acting as mind control agents in order to ensure the host protects their siblings until the wasps emerge as adults.
Which parasite freaked you out the most? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another mind-blowing moment from Wowverse. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.